soon dissolve like snow. The sun forbear to shine, but God alone below will be forevermore. You I've always loved that version of Amazing Grace, and certainly really appreciate the whatever you did to it. It was just really great. It's one of those songs that's always rung true for me, and Heather and I had it played at our wedding, and that was in 2011. And then also when my mom passed away just last year, we had Revival play it at her funeral. So I really, really love that song. I could say that I'm not all that well prepared because I was called on Thursday to do this. And right before we came, we got a message from Kim saying, please, I know you're going to be great, and enjoy yourself, and send me a copy. I think she meant electronically. And Heather said, are you kidding? It's on paper. But I did have it on my little iPad, but I couldn't figure out how to make the print bigger. So I tried that. But anyhow, I've got my pieces of paper with me. The Lord has promised good to me. His word my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be as long as life endures. And I think my message I'm going to try and get out is that God has a plan for my life, and he has a plan for your life. Whether it's just all those little wee bumps in the road as you go along, or it's the great big hurdles, he has a plan for each one of us. And there are many times in my life that I have felt that Jesus has set me free. And I am certain about his unending mercy and love. I don't know what his plans are for me in the future, but I certainly know that he has been with me up until now, and that all things do work for good. And when God is in your life, there's always hope there. So I'm going to share a few things about me. Some of you will know, some of you don't know me from a hole in the ground. I was born in Quebec, and to a very loving young couple. My mom was 19 and Dad was 21. And we moved to Brockville, and that's where I've spent most of my life. I'm very thankful that I was born into a Christian home, and that I was able to attend Catholic schools. And the reason being that God was part of our everyday life. It was easy to talk about God. It was never a taboo subject. As I grew up, I always felt close to him. I felt his presence, and I talked to him often. And I remember as I was growing up that thinking, oh my gosh, when I get, tell me if I start wandering and you can't hear me, just put your hand up and I'll come back to the anchor. When I was younger, I thought, I am going to die when I'm 33, right? Because I identified so much to Jesus, and apparently he died when he was 33, so I'm going to die when I'm 33. And somebody said, Suzanne, the only thing you have in common with him is that you both wear sandals in the summer. See, I didn't even have that down here. I was a very shy and quiet girl, and I always tried to please those in my life, my parents, my friends, my teachers, and I had a pretty good life. One of the most traumatic things that happened to me were the summers that my uncle would come and spend the summer with us. My dad had gotten him a job every summer to work at DuPont, and he would work there from, I think it was about May until September, to make money for university. And unfortunately with him came the molestations. And it would, of course, not when Mom and Dad were around, but it was when he was babysitting. He was a joker as well. I remember one time he had us all eating dog food out of the fridge because he thought it was that pate stuff. I was very relieved to see him leave at the end of the summer, and then I dreaded thinking, oh, he's coming back again next year. And I never said anything to anyone about that. And later on I became part of a group that taught about kids that are abused and what to do, and I think part of that was because of what I had gone through. And it's true what they say, when you're going through it, you don't think anybody's going to believe you, and so you never say anything. And it wasn't until I was in my teen years, and then my sister Lucy came up and she said, this is what Uncle is doing to me. And I hit the roof, and took her by the hand, and we went up and told Mom and Dad what had happened to me, what had happened to her. And my uncle was asked to leave with his new wife, and we hardly ever saw them again. And it took many, many years before I was able to forgive him. There were many attempts, and the guilt and the anger just kept coming back. And I had been teaching for quite a few years, and I attended a retreat, and it was at that time that I knew that I had to forgive him. I had to forgive him for me, so that I could be free of the negative feelings that I'd been carrying with me for years and years. I loved my school years. I was one of those kids that liked going to school. I worked hard, I played sports, and I had many friends. I seldom had conflicts with others, and I remember getting a call one day from a young lad, and he wanted to meet with me, wanted to visit with me. And I thought, much to my embarrassment, I couldn't even remember this guy. Somebody that had been a friend of Lucy's, and you were 3 years behind me in high school? I think you were 3 years behind me. And he had been a friend of hers, and he wanted to come out and see me. He lived out west, and he was visiting, and so I said, well, sure, come on out, whoever you are. And he came out, and of course when he came, there's something about people's eyes. They never really change, and I recognized him. And he said, I had to come and visit you and tell you that I wanted to thank you for the years in high school, how you were so kind and so nice to me. Because a lot of the other upper grade people just ignored him, I guess. And I was always nice to him. And it made me realize that, wow, you really do need to be kind to everyone. It doesn't matter whether you know them very well or not, because you never know what effect it's going to have on others. I wasn't perfect. There were those drunken binges in high school and university. I can remember being helped into the house and my friends saying, poor Suzanne, she got a real bad touch of the flu. Like, I don't think my parents ever believed that. There was one time where Mom and Dad went away, and they went to Ottawa for the weekend, and they had left us in charge because they trusted us. And, well, I don't know if anybody here knows Marcia Lindsay. Yes. Well, Marcia and I decided we were going to have our first big drunk. And we got a 26-ouncer of vodka, and we drank most of it straight. I know. And then we realized that it didn't taste very good that way, so I think we put ginger ale in with it, which was ew, bad, bad. And I missed the whole party. Apparently, we're really lucky to be alive because people do suffer from alcohol poisoning. I hugged the toilet seat, and she threw up on the side of the bed, and it was terrible. We cleaned the house the next day. Mom came home, and they never said anything, and I felt guilt. I felt so badly because they had trusted us all that time. And so finally, I think it was about a week later, I said, Mom, I have to tell you something. When you were gone, we had a big party. And she said, I know. I said, you knew and you let me suffer all week with the guilt? And she said, yes, because I knew you would come and tell me. That's the kind of home I came from. When I hit university, I went to Queen's, and I became involved with a Christian group called the Navigators. Have you heard of them? We had weekly Bible studies. We had social times together, and from that I developed some lifelong friendships. This was a time of renewal and strengthening of my faith, and from that I knew that when I started to teach, I really needed to be in a place where I would be able to talk about God, and therefore I chose the Catholic school system. And I remember in teachers' college, there's that time when everybody's getting anxious. Everybody's looking for a job. The boards are coming in with their representative. They're interviewing people, and everybody's on nerve. They're all nervous. And one day, I'm walking down the halls at MacArthur College, and I have friends coming up, Suzanne, your name's up on the monitor. You have to go to the administration office right away. And I'm thinking, oh, shoot, what did I do? And so with trepidation, I walked down to the administration office and found out that I was being offered a job. Now, that doesn't happen anymore. Even trying to get onto the supply list is a real chore. But there I was. I had promised God, Lord, wherever you want me to go, make it the first job offer, because that's the one I'm going to take. And I can remember thinking, I'll probably have to go up and Yellowknife or something like that. But here I was, offered a job in the school that I had attended from grade 1 to grade 8. It was really exciting to walk in the front door, the teacher door, instead of sneaking. And at first, all the halls seemed so small because they had been so big when I was growing up. So from there, I stayed in that system for 31 years. Let's see where I am now. I still had a month of teachers' college to go to, and I thought, oh, what am I going to do? Because they wanted me to start the following Monday. I still had a month to go. And admin said, go talk to your teachers, see what they say. And all but one said, go with our blessings, have a great time. That's why you're here, to get a job. And except for one, I had to do all my papers. But, God had a plan. He knew where he wanted me. And I obeyed. I went where I told him I would go. So that was his plan for me at that time. I remember a time in university. A friend of mine, Dave, and we were going to go to the Queen's Golden Gales game, and they were playing in Ottawa against the GGs. And it was pretty exciting because we were going to go on his motorcycle. And that was so much fun, you put the little helmet on. But before I left, I call it a nudge from the Holy Spirit, because I had this real feeling that I needed to write a love letter to my parents. And so I sat down and I wrote to my parents, telling them how much I loved them. And I put it on my desk in my bedroom downstairs. Mine was the clean one, Lucy's was the messy one. They would never have found it if it had been in her room. And off we went, but we never made it to Ottawa. For on the way to Ottawa, it started to rain. And as we were on the Highway 16, a lady near Manotick, it was the old 16, started pulling out in front of us. And thank goodness it was Dave driving, because he knew that if he swerved too quickly, we would probably lose control and go under the vehicle. So he stood and swore bad words, and I thought, oh Jesus, help me. And then there was that big loud smash as we hit the car, and then there I was, watching the whole thing. I didn't feel anything. I saw my body, I saw Dave as we flew through the air and landed somewhere on the ditch. Well, God had a plan for me, and it certainly wasn't my time yet, because here I am. I guess just you probably want to know what happened. Dave, as I looked over, he was screaming. He had his femur bone was sticking out of his leg because he had taken the brunt of the collision, and he broke his pelvis. And it made us closer, but it didn't work out because I'm a lesbian, you know. But my parents had quite a cry when eventually at the hospital they said everything was fine. The blood in my urine was not something to be concerned about. I was going to be able to go home, and I had told them, you cannot call my parents until I know. And then I picked up, they finally brought the phone, and I called Mom, and she said, there's something wrong. You're in the hospital, aren't you? She always had a knack. She always knew. She was one of those people you hated buying gifts for her, because she always knew what was in that box, even no matter what you did to camouflage it. And she and Dad had a good cry over that. I taught for 31 years, and I could tell you many stories about faith from that. I loved teaching. I think the hardest part about being a teacher in the Catholic school system was hiding my sexuality. And there was always that inner conflict. Like, how can I be a Christian and be a lesbian? Like, there just seems to be that dissonance, right? They just, and that's what you're told, right? You're an abomination. But it didn't matter to me, because I knew God loved me. And I knew I loved him for whoever I was. Shortly before I retired, my father passed away. And 4 months later, my partner of 23 years left me. It was a horrific time in my life, but God had a plan. And during this most painful time in my life, I drew even closer to Jesus. I was spending more time with my mother. I was now the single one. I could go up and spend time with her. And I often went up on the weekends, and I took my standard poodle. We had to go for walks because she had to do her duties. And one day, as I was walking, there was this big snow pile, and on the snow pile, there was a big book of CDs. And I thought, well, that's strange. And so I picked it up, and I took it to Mom's, and there were all kinds of neat songs in them, and all kinds of Christian music. And my favorite one became Robin Mark's Belfast Revival. And I listened and listened and listened to that, and I really felt God's presence every time I listened to it. And so I'm surprised that thing didn't wear out. Found out later on that CD had been stolen from the people that lived across the road from Mom, and I guess when the thief saw that it was all Christian music, they just dipped it. But in the meantime, I got to be very good friends with the people that lived across the road from Mom and Dad. So God has a plan, and that plan eventually led me to this church. It took 4 years of healing, and things were really coming together for me. I was quite content, but something was missing. But God had a plan. And then God brought Heather Irely into my life. But that's a story for another day.